G'day and welcome back to BuildSim, and this video is going to be the first video in a series of 4 where I want to show you different methods of getting the length of your hip. And in this video I want to show you the scribing method. So as you can see, I've started my roof, I've got my ridges, my common rafters and my crown end rafters in place, and now I'm ready to put cut my hips and my valleys in. So first step for the hip when we're scribing, grab the hip material. On this end I want to cut my plumb cut hip and my edge bevel hip. Okay, so I'm going to cut them before I do anything else. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my roof and I'm going to work out what the stand-up height of our rafters is. So that's the height that's left on from the back of the top of the bird's mouth to plumb up to the top of the rafter. Okay, so this distance here, the stand-up distance, and in this case it's 69.3 millimeters. Unless you've got a really sharp pencil and a good eye, you're not going to get the 0.3 of a mil, but we can work with 69 millimeters for our stand-up. Remembering that's on the plumb angle as well. So we come back down to our hip material, and on the plumb cut hip I'm going to measure up that 69.3 mil and put a mark. It doesn't need to be too long, only need the mark right at the end, but at the top of the hip we measure up from the bottom. Okay, then we go down to a position which is roughly where our bird's mouth's going to be, and we're going to mark down from the top on the plumb angle the same distance, 69.3 mil. And we're just going to draw a line along there that's parallel, because we don't know exactly where the bird's mouth is going to be. Okay, so just remember that at the top of the hip we measure up from the bottom, and at the bottom of the hip we measure down from the top. Once we've got that mark in there, this parallel line in, we can then put our hip in place, roughly. We're going to set it up so that the line that we just marked lines up with the edge of the crown end rafter on this side, and if you put the mark on the other side it'll line up with the top of the common rafter. Okay, and down the bottom you're just going to sit it where it would sit. Now whether you've cut your corner off or not, it doesn't really matter, but in this case I've cut my corner off, and what we're going to do is we're going to mark a line plumb up from the outside of our plate. So there you go, plumb that line up, put in a mark, and then you can take the hip back to the saw stools, and we can, so this is the back of our bird's mouth, so that's the plumb bevel hip, and we need the level bevel hip, which is always at 90 degrees, so we can use a square to get 90 degrees, mark that in place, and we can cut out our bird's mouth. Okay, you will then need to work out what your overhang is and cut that off, and also a lot of the time with a hip we need to reduce the width so that it doesn't interfere with our eave, so you can do that while you're here, and then we can put the hip in place. Okay, so that distance that was standing up above the roof has now dropped down, because this has dropped down into the bird's mouth. So what I would do from here, once I have that hip cut, I would take it around and I would test other locations to see if it fits. If it does fit, great, we can use it as a pattern. If it doesn't, you can repeat the method for all the other hips. Alright, so there we go. There we've cut a hip in using the scribing method.